Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing okay. We need to talk about the migrant crisis that we're experiencing throughout the country, particularly in New York City. Let me start off by saying that I made several YouTube videos, approximately 10 of them, talking about some of the concerns that I have in regards to undocumented immigration. And I used a few arguments on why I think it's a bad idea. And one of the things that I said, one of the arguments that I used against undocumented immigration had to do with the fact that resources are not unlimited, and also had to do with the allocation of resources. So I made approximately 10 videos, and if you've been following me for a while, you've probably seen those videos. For some reason, I deleted them a while ago, and I don't even remember why I deleted them. And I'm actually kind of mad at myself because when I first started making YouTube videos, I told myself, do not delete any of your videos. If you change your mind about something, or if you're not sure about something, don't delete your video. Just make it private and then maybe come back to it later, but don't delete it because you know exactly what you're talking about. And you know that eventually you're probably going to get proven right anyway. And most of the time I have been. And that's what I told myself when I first started making YouTube videos. I told myself, do not delete any of your videos because you know exactly what you're talking about. And I broke my own rule, and now I need to reference those videos, and I can't even reference them because I deleted them, which is too bad. But anyways, we've got a migrant crisis across the country. I mean, we've got a migrant crisis here in New York City as well as the other big cities. Some of these big progressive liberal cities have declared themselves sanctuary cities for migrants, but it's unfortunate because some of these sanctuary cities do not have the resources to accommodate migrants. Like, I understand a lot of these progressive liberal ideas are meant to be helpful, but the way I see it, they're causing a lot more problems than they're actually resolving. So in New York City and throughout the country, American citizens are struggling to afford groceries. They're struggling to be able to afford their own homes, especially in the big cities like New York City and the other big cities. New York City is one of the most expensive places to live in the world, if not the most expensive place to live in the world. I mean, the cost of living here is ridiculously high. So if you don't have like a high-paying salary or a highly in-demand skill, if you live here, you're going to be struggling. That's why I'm about to learn how to code so I can be a software engineer. And it's just crazy to me how there's all these resources being allocated to assist migrants. And I know that there are some resources being allocated to assist New York City residents, but it's the simple fact that New York City residents are suffering while we're helping migrants. American tax-paying dollars are going towards helping migrants when there's still New Yorkers that can barely afford to pay their rent and that can barely afford groceries because the cost of everything is going up, not to mention the explosion of homelessness. So that is just completely crazy to me, to go and feed your neighbor's children while your children are still hungry. That's incredible to me. This is why I can't get behind a lot of these progressive liberal ideas. They sound good on paper, but then when you actually put them into practice, they're causing more problems than they're actually resolving. Hence why New York City is on the verge of going bankrupt as a result of assisting migrants. So anyways, watch these articles. And I just hope that, I'll let you watch these videos, and I just hope that if you saw those videos that I posted, like I said, if you've been following me for a while, you've probably seen all of them. They were from a few years ago, but there was like 10 of them. So hopefully this will cause you to think and to just not hop on board with ideas just because everybody else is saying it, just because everybody else is doing it. It still might not be a good idea. And also, conservatives have been saying for a while that the borders need to be closed. And anytime you say you don't support undocumented immigration, the borders need to be closed, you get labeled racist, xenophobic, blah, 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 blah. They're discriminating against black and brown bodies. Instead of just having these emotional reactions, you have to think with your head. We don't have the resources to accommodate everyone that we are trying to accommodate. New York City is on the verge of going bankrupt trying to accommodate migrants. Meanwhile, native New Yorkers are struggling to afford to live in their own homes, which is ridiculous. So I'm gonna play these videos for you guys, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section.
4 humanitarian relief centers, 74 emergency shelters. That's on top of the city's existing shelter infrastructure. Mayor Eric Adams says it's still not enough. That's Andrea, her husband, and their 2 young children, a migrant family from Colombia, South America, huddled on a corner in Flatbush, Brooklyn, Friday night.
It's been a very difficult experience.
She doesn't want her face shown on camera and tells us she does not know what the future holds for her family. Andrea is one of almost 40,000 migrants and counting who arrived by bus over the last several months. They are all beneficiaries of New York City's right to shelter or legal obligation to house the homeless. But Mayor Eric Adams sounded his most urgent alarm yet on this growing crisis, calling it unsustainable.
We need help.
In a televised interview Friday evening, he asked once again for additional state and federal aid.
None of our small or large cities should be experiencing this.
But it was what the mayor said in a Friday afternoon press release that stunned migrants and their advocates. It amounts to a warning that New York City might ultimately violate its legal obligations. Quote, "We are at our breaking point. Based off our projections, we anticipate being unable to continue sheltering arriving asylum seekers on our own." Ariadna Phillips of South Bronx Mutual Aid says additional state or federal aid is not the answer.
What we need is long-term permanent housing. That needs to be the solution instead of these Band-Aids that are not going to be a solution for anyone.
Certainly the costs are going to continue to grow, but there are ways to solve the problem. The federal government could make people eligible to work. The federal government could help people move to other parts of the country.
But that is not an option for everyone, including Andrea and her family, which means they could end up relying on New York City's services permanently.
She said, I don't know another place.
In an apparent effort to underscore the severity of the migrant crisis here in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams is going to Texas. He's going to arrive in El Paso tomorrow, returning to the Big Apple Sunday.
We have to solve the migrant-immigrant issue. So it's easy to point to whomever is in the White House at the time. Those are Band-Aids. We have a problem at our borders. And El Paso shouldn't be going through this, and no other city should be going through this. And so when I say the federal government, I'm talking about Congress and the executive branch resolving this issue of our migrants. That's what I'm talking about. And we're not going to try to simplify this to say, well, you know, should it be just Washington? No, we have an immigrant crisis that we can't continue to ignore.
We have to talk about new developments in the ongoing migrant influx here in the city, trying to find room for them, causing tension within the city shelter system. News 4 Government Affairs reporter Melissa Russo has the new details.
With the city struggling to house thousands of new migrants, we've learned that tensions at some city homeless shelters are at a new high. Fights are breaking out, and in some cases, we're told the resentment is palpable. This brawl happened inside a Brooklyn shelter for families Thursday night. Residents tell the I-Team tensions boiled over between local homeless and newly arrived migrants. Police responded, and today some migrant families moved out of the shelter and into a local church because they simply did not feel safe. We've heard similar stories from several shelters.
Migrants are getting beat on, you know, the police is being called.
Some nonprofit shelter operators tell the I-Team a major cause of the resentment is that the city is now moving people around from shelter to shelter to make room for migrants.
Why are we being displaced for them when we was already reasonable accommodated here? Why are we being moved around, shuffled around?
This resident, who asked us not to use her name, says she was suddenly forced to vacate the Queens shelter where she'd been living for almost a year and where she received special accommodations for a disability.
I'm on 5 different kind of medications, and I can't take my medicine without eating. So I haven't eaten in about 3 days.
But in her new shelter, she says she has no refrigerator and is not allowed to keep food in her room.
Yeah, this is my leftovers. This is what I have to put my food in.
Because
we can only allow to bring in 1 plate of food at a time.
We have been speaking with a lot of people who are facing sudden transfers and sudden moves because the city is moving people around with no notice, moving people around without taking their reasonable accommodations into consideration.
Some advocates for the homeless want the city to open new facilities for migrants and let everyone else stay put. To be clear, right now the migrants are also being forced to move around. The city hopes its plans to build relief centers strictly to help with intake and services for migrants will help. After speaking with some shelter residents earlier this afternoon about this, we reached out to the city for a comment, but so far we've not heard back. Reporting from Queens, Melissa Russo, News 4, New York.